Hello, everyone. This is Marcus, ex-Wallkill Bethelite, and Jehovah's Witnesses say that they have a governing body like the first century Christians had one. This is, of course, a lie. They don't have a governing body like the one in the early Christian congregations. Jehovah's Witnesses, early on in the group's history, had presidents that were in control of matters. We can look at the earliest records of Rutherford and him wielding complete and total control over Watchtower. Rutherford outlawed beards. He wanted to show his dominance to the point that he didn't even want anyone at Bethel looking like Charles Taze Russell. So he outlawed the look, the beard. He went and bought a mansion in San Diego and did what Watchtower has always did to cover over what it's doing, to make it sound and look biblical. Rutherford called the mansion that he bought for himself Beth Serene and told people he was buying it so that when people were resurrected, they would have a place to live. That wasn't Beth Serene. That was not anything biblical. It was a corporation. The head of the corporation was buying himself a mansion with Cadillacs, with cars. The corporation is not run by the men that they say are its governing body. They're not governing anything. We've already discussed that Jared Loesch was a waiter. He went from being a waiter to knocking on doors to quote unquote being governing body. Do you really believe that someone whose professional career, the only thing he'd be able to put down on a resume is that he was a waiter, can run a corporation? Jeffrey Jackson dropped out of school at 15 years old. Do we really believe that someone who has had no education since the age of 15 is really running an organization? These are figureheads. These are people that Watchtower calls a governing body so that it sounds more biblical. This fits the pattern of what Watchtower has always done. Calling its schools Gilead, calling factories Bethel. They use biblical terms that they rip out of the Bible and apply it to themselves to make themselves sound credible. You have Samuel Hurd, someone who was in the military, gets back from the military, sees someone that he wants to marry, sees a JW woman that he wants to have relations with. So he joins the religion for that. These men are not a governing body. There is no such thing when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses. What you have to do is follow the money. Who is accountable for what goes on in the organization? And there's an article, an older article, where it discusses a few facts that happened in early 2000 that we want to discuss. So let's go into it. The article is from Christianity Today, and it goes in and says that the group, Jehovah's Witnesses, baptized only 30,000 converts, down from a high of nearly 50,000 in 1988, according to statistics. Let's drop down some more. Globally, the group claims nearly 6 million publishers, but added fewer than 300,000 members worldwide in 2000. A significant drop from 1997's high of 375,000. So you have numbers dropping, numbers plummeting with regards to Jehovah's Witnesses. The source of money plummeting, dropping with regards to Jehovah's Witnesses. Who's in charge? Who's held accountable? Who takes action to try and reverse the downward trend? Is it a quote-unquote governing body? No. If the governing body was in control, wouldn't they be the ones to take action? Yes, they would. Let's read a little bit more. Article goes on to say, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society formed 3 new corporations. 1, Kingdom Support Services. This will focus on the everyday needs of individual congregations. So basically what you have is you have numbers plummeting, and the organization Watchtower puts corporations, little firms you could say, in place to help reverse the trend. One of those is Kingdom Support Services. So when you're in charge of something and things are on a downward spiral, you have to do something. You have to show your superior or superiors that you've done something to reverse it. Well, what happened? Well, Kingdom Support Services are in charge of the individual congregations. And what we noticed happening at a very high rate was kingdom halls were being consolidated. Congregations were being consolidated. Let's shrink these congregations. Let's sell off access kingdom halls. So you have this group, this aspect of the organization is in charge, and we see that they're in charge because once this was done in early 2000, we saw the effect. Kingdom halls being sold like crazy. The religious order of Jehovah's Witnesses will interact with full-time workers who take a vow of poverty. That would be people like myself. What did we see happen in the early 2000s after this group was established? Because if something happens after this group is established, that shows they have the authority, they have the power to take action to change things with regards to the organization, that they're running things. Well, you had a complete restructuring of full-time service. Bethelites were essentially laid off. So you had Kingdom Support Services, Inc., apparently in control of the sell off of kingdom halls. Then you have the Religious Order of Jehovah's Witnesses, who apparently was in charge of the laying off of full-time service, especially Bethelites. So you had a wave of Bethelites that were quote-unquote reassigned. All it was a response to the plummeting numbers. The membership dropping dramatically. They had to do something. So they're selling buildings. This group is in charge of that. They're laying off members, Bethelites. This group is in charge of that. The Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses will oversee religious matters. Now, this is interesting because if they have a governing body, wouldn't that be who oversees religious matters? They wouldn't need to put somebody in charge of something someone else was already in charge of. Where is this governing body? The organization clearly has people in place that are in charge of major decisions with regards to the organization. Well, what did they do? Well, you have the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Inc., this other little separate entity in charge of religious matters. And did we see a change? Did they do something to show their higher-ups that they're trying to reverse the trend, the downward trend? Well, yes. If you go to a Kingdom Hall now, it doesn't even resemble what a Kingdom Hall looked like years ago. You have TVs set up everywhere. You have a big screen where when they're singing songs, they put the words of the song up. So essentially, what this group did in order to try to curb the downward spiral was to make Watchtower more like other churches. In specific, more like the Mormons. The Mormons have had broadcasts, quote unquote, broadcast. They've had the tablets that the members use. They've had a website. They've had their leadership broadcast to all the Mormons all around the world. And Watchtower took on that same structure, copied off of the Mormons essentially. And not only that, but they copied off of other churches. A lot of churches you go around, even smaller ones, they've got the TV set up in the churches. They're trying to see what works and what can we change in Watchtower organization to more mimic what we see around us. Well, they copied off the Mormons and they copied off of other churches. Let's put up the TVs. Let's put up the words to the music. Let's have leadership broadcasts, quote unquote leadership, really just the figureheads. Let's broadcast and do what the Mormons do. So you see, you have groups that were put in place and given authority to make changes. And you had those changes made. We've seen what all three of these groups have done. So you have Milton Henschel, who was president around about the time where the numbers were going down. Things were going bad for Watchtower. You have Milton Henschel. He resigned, quote unquote, resigned. Really, more than likely he got fired. More than likely he got fired. He was told to step down. But the organization doesn't want to have another situation like they did with Ray France, where they put out someone that has a lot of essential knowledge about the workings of the organization, and then they go and write a book. and put that information out for everyone to read. Well, they don't want that to happen. So essentially, Milton Henschel, instead of just firing him because all the numbers are going down, the money's going down, they had him step down and remain a member of the governing body. So they gave him a title. But if a person steps down and is a governing body, then the governing body was never in charge. That's a step down for a president, is to stay on salary, essentially, as a governing body member, or just a figurehead, someone we pay just to be in front of the people. So we see here that Watchtower has lied to the Jehovah's Witnesses as far as the structure is concerned. There is no governing body. That is a title that was stolen from the Bible. It sounds good. They wanted to change the way people viewed the organization, especially after Rutherford was so flamboyant, doing so many things that would make people think this is a cult. It was a little bit too obvious. This is a cult. So let's hide who's in control. Let's get a group of men and call them the governing body. And I believe, according to the article, the governing body is to work in conjunction with the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, that group that they put in charge. Now, once they put that group in charge of that aspect of Watchtower, we still saw all those changes. So that's who's in charge. That's it. That's who's in charge. Those three corporations: Kingdom Support Services, who's been selling off all the kingdom halls and consolidating congregations, basically the group that's been in charge of all the real estate. The Religious Order of Jehovah's Witnesses, the ones in charge now of layoffs and getting rid of the older workers who are full-time servants and bring in younger Bethelites to avoid that cost. And the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, who changed everything, got rid of the theocratic ministry school. You don't have book studies in people's homes anymore. They changed everything. And now you have people standing next to cart witnessing. They've changed everything. These corporations were put in place because Watchtower was dying, and they needed to put someone in place to save it. So essentially, it's so much easier to, quote unquote, go out in service now. All you have to do is stand next to a cart. You don't have to talk to anyone. Just stand next to it. So you see how this corporation, Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, is trying to make it easier to be a JW. You guys can get your time in just by standing there. We'll put up TVs for you. You guys can have these tablets and you don't even have to think. Just go to jw.org and look up the answers to anything anybody says. You don't even have to know anything anymore. We're making it so easy for you. And look, we still have these figureheads in place that we call governing body because that's in the Bible. It sounds good. Let's just pull it out of there and put it in place in Watchtower as far as just the title. And that makes you guys feel like you're similar to the first century congregation. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. I believe Don Adams was president, and that would mean that he had a great deal of control along with his board, the people that worked with him. But he's older now, and governing body members, quote unquote, the false governing body, the fake governing body, the people that are just figureheads, they don't do anything. That's why you have older members that just get older. They don't necessarily have to step down. Samuel Hurd is older and looks like he doesn't even know where he is half the time. Well, that's okay because he doesn't have to do anything. He's not in charge of anything. These different corporations, these 3 corporations are. So he won't have to step down. He can just stay and get old and not know who he is or where he is. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'm sure you guys have done research. Let's put what we've gotten together in the comment section. And that way we can all bounce this information off of each other, trying to find out who's in charge. Because I think Don Adams is older now, so someone else must be in charge. There's speculation as to who that is, I think. If anyone knows who that is, go ahead and post it down below. Wallkill Bethelite signing out.